Real Talk TV. My name is Darryl Buchanan. I'm your host. We have another great show for you. But before we get to that, I would like to give a few shout outs. I'd like to give a shout out to Leaving the Street Ministries out in Haverhill. These are my friends, Wanda and Jesus, doing big things out there with the kids, helping them get out of gangs. And, I just applaud you guys for the work that you guys are doing out there. And just adding to the community, the value of the community, and I appreciate that. I also like to give a shout out to Yard Time Entertainment. My man Joseph Bennett out there in Boston, he's doing big things with the kids out there. He not only that, he also has a men's mental health group that issues that men don't always deal with or haven't dealt with or afraid to talk about. He's putting guys to the table, and guys are sitting around and just talking about their innermost feelings, and I just appreciate that too. Appreciate everything that you're doing. I also like to give a shout out to the guys here at WMCT-TV. Like I said, without them, this wouldn't even be happening. Real Talk TV wouldn't even be here. So I like to give a shout out to Alex, Mike, Matt, and Ryan. Man, I appreciate you guys. Man, I appreciate you guys dealing with me every week, just being there for me and making this thing work. Without further ado, I have another good show for you, another important guest. You guys had asked me before. I had asked you guys, who would you like for me to have here? A few of you guys reached out and sent me this gentleman's name. I reached out to him. We chopped it up a little bit, and he's here today. And I just appreciate him coming. I'd like to introduce Joey Simonelli. He's the founder and owner of A Vision for Hope out in Weymouth, Mass. He's also a person in long-term recovery, and he's also a person that's proving that recovery works, and you can do it one day at a time. Hey, Joey, can you introduce yourself to my guest, please?
Absolutely. Is the camera here?
Right here.
Right here. Joey Simonelli. I'm the founder and owner of A Vision for Hope. I grew up in Malden, Massachusetts, and I am in long-term recovery.
Yeah, thank you. Joey, let me ask you a question. What was your environment like when you was growing up? Was your dad there? Was your mom there? Was there any addiction issues, or what was happening around the house?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a city-like environment. Yeah. I grew up in Malden, Massachusetts. My dad is actually, he suffers from substance abuse as well. Okay. My mom, she doesn't use it at all. She was actually, very stable in my childhood. Cool. She kind of, she always looked out for me, always did her best, things of that nature. Cool. But yeah, my dad's side of his whole family all struggled with, substances, whether it be drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, so how about the environment outside the house? How was it,
the environment I chose or the environment that was out there?
Either or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean.
The one you chose.
Yeah, I mean, the environment that was out there, I definitely gravitated more towards the guys that were doing the wrong thing, what I thought was cool at the time, But there was definitely, there was some people that are like staples in my life to this day that definitely picked me up while I was down and, try to point me in the right direction while I was going the wrong way. Cool.
Yeah. What was schools like? What type of kid was you in school?
Yeah, so I definitely was a little troubled in school. So my attendance was terrible. My grades were pretty good because I can kind of schmooze like the teachers and kind of be creative with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I had those, those addict-like qualities at a young age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely, I didn't give my all in school. No. But yeah, it was a good environment. Like I said, the teachers, they were always trying to point me in the right direction. They seen something in myself that I just didn't see at the time. Yeah.
Most that's usually the case too, right?
Yeah.
So people see that before we even get to see it, right?
100%.
Okay, let me ask you something. When was the first time, how did you get introduced to drugs? I mean, most of us, did you go to the gateway, marijuana, drinking marijuana? How did that happen for you, bro?
Yeah, so I mean, I saw my dad struggling from a very young age, and I kind of watched that tear apart my family. So while that was happening, I was out there hanging out with the older crowd, some of my older cousins, things like that. And I started smoking marijuana at a young age, 12, 13, and then I kind of just got introduced to more and more substances after that. I started selling drugs, and then it just kind of took off from there.
That seems like to be the pattern, right? We started smoking, then we want to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have those dreams. So when was the first time you used? What was your drug of choice?
Opiates.
Opiates? Yeah. So heroin, fair to say. When was the first time that you used that?
15 or 16, I started, heavily using opiates.
Wow. Yeah. And people, and it's funny because we just had a meeting with Marlboro Addiction Prevention Coalition, and they were talking about going into the schools, and they didn't think, I think they didn't think that middle school was affected like that. And I was like, man, when I was 12 or 13, I was using cocaine. So,
Absolutely,
you know what I mean? So, I think they're out of touch with that. So when did you, how did it happen? I mean, how did it spiral out? How did it get out of control? And how did you, when you first realized you had a problem?
Yeah, I think so definitely spiraled out of control. Like I said, I started smoking, I started selling weed, stuff like that, and then it kind of graduated into other substances, and then every substance that I would start selling, I would start using. And then it spiraled like that, and I would say freshman year in high school is when I really realized that, I was dealing with something bigger than myself. I remember waking up in the morning and being sick, and I couldn't understand why I was sick. I was using, substances and drugs every day, and then I would wake up in the morning and I would be sick, and I'd be like, something's wrong with me. I didn't even know what was going on, right? And then I kind of put two and two together, like when I'm not using, I'm sick, and I was like, damn, I'm kind of, I'm deep in it now. Yeah, that's when I realized.
Yeah. So what did you when you did that? Did you think about getting help right then, or you just kept it moving on that?
Yeah, I kept it moving on that. I thought like it was gonna be kind of like a phase, and I thought that I mean, you know how it is when you're young, you think you can, take on the world. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna wake up one day and use my willpower and, use my strength and get out of this. And that wasn't the case. So I would say from that year from 16 to 17, I kind of just blew it off, and I was like, I'll be able to stop whenever I want. And then my family kind of grabbed a hold of me, and they were like, something's going on, right? Like, you're not going to school, you're getting suspended, you're getting in fights, like, the police are always at the house, like, what's up? So I finally got honest with my mom. Ended up going to treatment at 17, and that's kind of the first point that I knew that I was powerless. I went into detox. I did the 5-day stay, and I really believed like I was going to be okay. I did the 5 days. My mom picked me up the last day, and I remember getting in the car, and she was like bawling her eyes out. She was like, "Don't do this to me like your dad did. Don't put me through the same thing." And I remember making this promise that I felt like was true at the time. And by the time I got home, I got hit with that mental obsession to use, and I ended up picking up, and I remember like that broken feeling, like that hopeless, purposeless feeling, and I was like, this is bigger than myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just made a promise in the car 20 minutes ago, I get home, and here I am again.
That's what we do.
Like, yeah.
That's crazy. So what was the end like, bro? What was the end? I know for the end for me, man, it was, spiritually, mentally, physically bankrupt. I mean, like my name was Get Out. At that time. You know what I mean? It was terrible, bro. It was like really, really terrible. I was all alone. How about you, bro? How did it feel?
Same. It brought me to that same point, broken and alone, completely hopeless. Yeah.
And so you was at a point where, you spiritually, like, they like the spiritual part of it for me was like I wanted to die but didn't know how.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I wanted to die, but I also wanted to get high. Was it like that for you?
Yeah, definitely confusing.
Like back before you didn't want to.
Yeah, I wanted to die, and then I wanted to get high, and then I would get high and think life was great, and then 5 hours later I would want to die again. It's confusing, man. But in between that whole period, I would be spiritually bankrupt, broken. Yeah. I still think about those times where I was just sitting there broken, completely hopeless.
Did you think that you was only hurting yourself? That was another part of my thing.
Yeah,
I didn't think it bothered anybody.
At the time, so that's another part that would confuse me, right? Like at the time, I was convinced that I was only harming myself, and that's like the lie that I told myself as well. But then there would be those moments where I would be put in situations where I had that emotional appeal, and I would have like my mom crying in my face, or like my grandmother or someone close to me. I could see that I was hurting them, and that emotional appeal would only last for 5 minutes. I would feel it, and I would be like, wow, I'm actually hurting this person. And then my mind would switch and be like, I gotta
fix that feeling with a feeling, right?
Exactly.
It's crazy. So what about how'd you get into recovery? I mean, was it a bunch of times trying before you really actually got it?
Yeah, it was a bunch of times trying. I was, it was detox after detox, sober house, CSS, MAT. I tried everything under the sun. Huh? Yeah. And I finally got sober at 21. I got sober young. I got sober at 21.
And so was that just going into a program?
So I went into Danvers Detox, Danvers Cab Detox. I remember that, I did a 7-day stay over there. And I met someone before going into detox that was going to scholarship me into their 12-step retreat. And that was like something that I never tried. You know, I did everything else rather than step work or any type of you know, big book treatment.
Inside work, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
All
never worked on
exterior.
myself.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's all. Let me ask you a question. Just get away from that. Just two questions I'd like to ask. They say lost dreams reawaken when you get clean. Did you experience that?
100%.
So all the dreams that you had, you kind of like living them now, or you can see them again?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, when I was growing up, I always had like this passion to help people and like be involved in the community and push people to be better. And then I lost that when I was, you know, when I was getting high, I just completely lost that.
Yeah.
Anything, I isolated myself. And then as soon as I got sober, I felt like I got that fire and that passion back. And I've been running with that ever since.
I see. I did a lot of research on you, man, and yeah, you're doing a lot. You know what I'm saying? I think what happens in ones that hurt a lot, and we're, you know, people like us have that kind of heart anyways, you know what I mean? And we're extremists, so when we do things, I mean, so I see that happening for you, man. Yeah. It is another question. Is it true once an addict, always an addict?
I believe so. Yeah.
It is. So what is the difference?
As in?
Like if someone asked me that, it says, once an addict, always an addict. I don't know if, when they asked me that question, I don't know if they meant that. I really don't know how they meant it. But I'm thinking, we're never going to be well. Well, we're never going to be cured, right? We have to do this one day at a time. You believe that?
I believe that. I believe if I picked up today, I would be right back to where I left off, if not worse.
The progressiveness of the illness, right?
Yeah, I believe it's still there.
It is the truth, man. It happened to me, man. In my last relapse, it was like I wasn't clean for 5 years. And those 5 years, I was like in the same place I would have been if I,
100%.
I got broke, busted, and disgusted quicker.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe like 72 hours, it was like I was done.
Yeah.
All that crazy, the guilt and stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it was just nuts. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Somebody sent me in 2 questions, and I want to ask this question. Why do some addicts that really try hard never get it? My mother was an addict, and I witnessed her giving it her all, but she died. This is a question from a female named Taylor L.
Okay. Honestly, I would say that mental obsession is just real strong. You know, we were just sitting there talking about like the confusion, right? That's kind of how that mental obsession works. Like these lies that we tell ourselves. You know, we're always justifying things in our brain. So I see it with a lot of close members in my family. Like, you could see that they're willing and they're hopeless, and then they go off to treatment and everything's okay. And, you know, they're like all gun ho, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to, you know, work on myself. And they lose that, and they're hit with that mental obsession. You know, they find an excuse, if you will, to use, you know, an excuse that seems justifiable to them at the time because that's just how their brain's working. Yeah. So I believe if you don't continue to do that inner work on yourself, you know, that mental obsession is going to beat you up until the point that you are willing to do that work.
Yeah, it does, you know? And another question from Gen C told me to ask this question. How is substance use disorder and mental health connected? Is there a connection with it?
I believe there is and there isn't. I mean, they're definitely 2 separate things. I think that they can coexist, you know. I think that a lot of people that suffer from mental health also suffer with substance abuse and vice versa.
Yeah. When I read that, right, I'm like, yeah, we crazy, man.
Right.
Stuff I did, you would think a person who had real serious mental health problems, the stuff that I did and how I was acting out there. So, yeah. Okay, let me talk a little bit about A Vision for Hope.
Okay.
How did that start? Why did it start? And yeah, why did you feel the need to have a vision of hope?
Yeah, so when I was trying to get sober and I was going through treatment and I was going through programs, I found myself constantly wanting to get better, and there was no solution out there. Like, I couldn't find the solution. I would go to detox, and then, you know, someone would be like, oh yeah, let's try to find some aftercare for you, and then there would either be no bed for aftercare, or I'd be stuck trying to do like 90 meetings in 90 days. You know, and I would always fall flat, and I would end back up in that spin dry, going in and out of treatment programs. The last time I went to treatment, I found this program that was a 12-step retreat. So you go in, it was like a 30-day restriction. You start going through the 12 steps, write a 4th step on site and everything like that. And once I saw that worked for myself, I was like, people need to, you know, try this route. People need this kind of solution in their life, right? Like, they need to do that inner work on themselves. So I had that passion, that fire, and then I kind of I ran with it. I was able to open, you know, my first house when I was like a year and a half, 2
Your
years
first
sober.
house? How many you got?
Five now. Extremist, right?
Yeah, you said multiple. No, I get it.
Yeah.
So you have 5, and they're all under the flag of
A Vision for Hope. Yep.
Vision for Hope.
They're all different phase houses. So usually the way it
Okay.
works is guys start.
Explain
at
those, yeah.
They start at the first phase, and that's when they're on like a 30-day restriction. We give them one-on-one sponsorship, take them through the 12 steps, and then they step over to the phase 2 house. It's more of like a working house. And then as they go through the program, they get more and more freedoms and things like that to kind of step down and transition into, normal
So
life.
it's 5 steps.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of the houses kind of are like the phase 4, because I can't really figure out a phase 5. At that point, it's kind of like, all right, dude, go.
Go do your
go do your thing.
You pass go, right? Yeah.
Yeah, get out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I think that was one of my other questions. Because there's a lot of centers out. I've had a lot of people come on the show, and then people that have open centers. And I think I applaud it because coming from a person with substance use disorder and have that experience, I think we're more inclined to understand and I'm not saying better treat, but why? Let me ask you, what is different about your approach from the norm? So the norm, what they're doing regularly in programs and detoxes, you think that's going to become like a thing with past it, and this new look is coming? Because there is a new look. You see, people like us is opening these things and manning the controls instead of like, what we're used to.
What I think is cool about that is that everybody has their different spin to it. The different positive spin. Like everybody has their different strengths that they can bring to the table. Like if you see like what I do with the Vision for Hope, we incorporate like a lot of fitness and stuff like that. Like we do the boxing classes.
I was going to ask you about that,
Yeah. So I think everybody has their own.
Explain that more then. So I was going to ask those questions, but you can explain that.
Because I mean, as you know, like not one size fits all in recovery, right? Like different things work for different people. So I think people opening their own programs is pretty cool. It's a different niche for each person, and somebody might relate more with a different program.
Got you. So you're saying the more variety, the more the better. I got you. All right. So describe. Let me ask you another question before I get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a family component?
As
in Vision for Hope, as the family participation, and do you do family therapy? Is there anything that, say, if a guy's there and his marriage is messed up, he didn't, the kids, wife and kids don't want him home.
Right.
Is there a way you guys deal with all that component?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Sundays would be like family visitation day. We try not to dive into like any group sessions until after 30 days though, because what I usually see happen is the blame game. You know what I mean? Like the person that's in treatment isn't really like recovered yet. They're really like, so I kind of wait for 30 days, and then we incorporate the family as they move forward.
Yeah, because actually there's a let me give you one of these testimonies, right? Just what a couple guys said about dealing with a Vision for Hope. He said, I entered a Vision for Hope broken. Then they even came to the hospital to pick me up. I was welcomed with open arms. I learned a lot about Joey, about triggers, and how to handle my disease. And that's Ryan F. And another person said, my time at Vision for Hope, I was able to rebuild and repair my life with my wife, family, and friends. My wife and I found it to be restorative and exciting. And when I've read that word restorative, that's deep, man. You know what I mean? That's big. I wonder if that was Lane. But no, Lane said, my 8 months at Vision for Hope changed my life. I arrived sick and broke. Oh, that's it. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah, so this is what people were saying that they get there, and I think the restorative part, it's a powerful word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for him to use that, you must, like he said, he got his family, his wife back, and you gave him some tools.
That's powerful to hear.
Well, you have to hear it, and that's when I do it. I want to make sure you hear these, because that's the testimony. Yeah. That's somebody's story, and that's how somebody feels. And I know they were broken. I guess when they went in, they were broken, and they came out with hope. So that means, and hope's a big thing. That's why I do the show.
100%, yeah.
Let me ask you another question. Tell me a little bit about the volunteer you work. I see you everywhere.
Yeah.
Bro, and it's a good thing. I see you working with kids. I see you, like you said, clothes. I think I've seen toys, giving out toys. And I also, what I liked about, I've seen people giving you your props, man. Like respecting your recovery and respecting what you're doing. And I mean, that's peers that's in your field. I see that, you see around a lot of good people. But so tell me a little bit about the volunteer. Why you volunteer and why you think it's important to give back?
Yeah, I'll volunteer in any good cause, anything, right? What I try to focus on a lot is like the teens. So we volunteer a lot at the teen center in Malden. It's a teen enrichment center, and I like to do that because that's where I struggled most, was in my teen years. I had not much guidance, so I try to impact that population as much as possible.
And in Malden, and we was talking about it. I think that's where you grew up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that was your stomping ground. So it is good to go back and.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
Like I said, because we made this lifestyle look cool to those kids that maybe not directly to those kids, but I'm sure we passed down all the misinformation by the way we lived, right?
Right.
In the beginnings, I mean, people with substance use disorder, or what they say, addicts, are some of the coolest person when it starts off, right? We make things cool. So, yeah. So is that the only place you volunteer at? I seen something else. I'm not sure what it was. I seen you doing a couple events, or was that?
I'm all over the place, man.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so cool. I want to ask you a couple questions off. These are basically your opinion or what you just think about.
Okay.
Do you think that the people in power, the people that have the power to make these real changes that's necessary for more people to get in recovery, make less barriers to this, remove some of the barriers. Do you think they're listening and hearing our cries for help, man, or our cries for understanding? Or do you think that they're just handing us the same old?
I think they're definitely hearing it. I think that there's just a lack of knowledge and a lack of solution. I think that it's a complex thing, it's tough. So I think that a lot of people just aren't educated on the topic. And that's really what it is. But I think they hear it.
They hear it. Yeah. So how do we do it? Where do we get that? Where do we get, because that's where if we're trying to, remove barriers, right? And these people have the power to remove a lot of these barriers, how do we get to them? I mean, they know that this is people are dying. Yeah. Consistent. If that doesn't move them, how do we do that? How do we get them to see what's really going on and to the place where it moves them, and not just see and they just sit around and do business as usual, but see it and moves them to do stuff. How do we do that?
Honestly, I think by doing what we're doing right now. I mean, seeing people dying is one thing. Hearing the stories of the people that have passed on, or the people that are living in recovery now is more powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think just people using their voice and standing up for what they believe in,
Yeah.
it's powerful. Doing this right now can just, touch one person's heart, that touches another, and it's kind of a domino effect from there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. All right. So what can we do more of, though? I mean, I had Matt on the show, and Matt Ganem, and he answered this question, and he was talking about the gap in CSSs. What I mean? That we probably need more of that. Do you agree or disagree with that? You agree with that?
Definitely.
Is there anything else you think that we need more of as far as helping?
No, definitely the CSS, and I would definitely say some more like community involvement, like just pulling people together. I mean, I feel like people are really divided.
Yeah,
all over the country in general. Like I think people should just be pulling each other together and lifting each other up.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I get it. All right. Another question. What is your thought about medically assisted treatment? First of all, do you do that at your Vision for Hope?
At some of our houses, we do.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I think again, I think it's not one size fits all. I've seen it work for some people, and I've seen it not work for others. So yeah, I think it can work.
But do you think that the introduction of that, do you think it hinders people, or puts people, or just exchanges drugs, basically? You know what I mean? You get off of heroin and you get on Suboxone, or you get on methadone, and you stay forever.
Yeah,
I just know people that have done that. You know what I mean?
Same. I've seen the same thing. I mean, in my own personal experience, it never worked for me. it kind of blocked me off from wanting to do any work on myself. Because it was like I was just exchanging one thing for another. And I would forget how hopeless I was, or, the necessity to do any inner work on myself. So for me, it didn't work.
Okay. But you have seen, and we know it does work for people, but
Yeah.
does it work for enough numbers that it has a value, you think? If you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
no,
There's
I
nothing
think-
here that you have to. You don't have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's definitely, I think it definitely works for some people. Yeah.
All right, cool. If there was one thing you could change about your life, what would it be?
Today? Like what would I change about my life today?
No, just in general. If there was one thing, I mean, a lot of people, I don't regret. I think I regret a lot of stuff that I hurt people, but I don't regret the path, of the choices. Some of the choices I made, I don't regret them. I understand, but I don't regret them.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much I would change. People ask me that often too, and I don't think there's nothing, man, because what I went through made me who I am today. It gave me the strengths that I have today.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I would really change.
What message do you want your life to be?
Oof. I just want to show people that there's hope. That there's hope for a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you do that. I think the fact that from what I've seen, I think you do that. Okay, tell me a little bit about your team, right? About your recovery. I just talk about your recovery a little bit. We know we don't do this alone. What people in your life you have in your life that keep you accountable, to keep you motivated, to keep going? What keeps you motivated, and what people are in your life keep you guided, on the right path and accountability? What's about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the people that I got sober with, the people that I kind of started out with, those guys still hold me accountable to this day. What keeps me going is like those testimonies right there that you just heard, like seeing someone come in the program and having that fire in their eyes when they start getting it together and they can see some hope, man. I think that's what keeps me going, that feeling right there, and seeing, the impact on somebody else's life.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, what advice? Oh, here's a bigger question. I wanted to ask you. I always ask this question. Everybody can tell you, because not all the time, but a lot of times when I get in conversation with people, they're more just like, why didn't you just stop? Why don't you just stop, or why don't people just stop, or use their willpower? You know what I mean? Is this thing a choice or a disease?
I think it's 100% definitely a disease. I think it was a choice for me to pick up those substances in the beginning, but then after that, I lost the power to choose after that. There was never a time after I picked up that first substance that I was able to say no to picking up and using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like the obsession, the compulsion. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going through this one fast. Okay. Let me ask you another question. You just knocked me out the park. What advice can you give someone who may be struggling and feel like there's no hope?
Yeah, I would definitely say just keep at it. I know for me, it took me over 50 times of trying to get sober until I finally got it. So just keep at it. Don't lose the hope. And then connect with people that have what you want. See someone that has walked in your shoes and reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody.
Cool. Do you have a team that works with you at your places? I mean, how does that? There's staff there, or?
Yeah. So we have 2 staff members that actually went through the program, and then we have house managers at each location.
You can give a shout out to them if you want, man. Let them know if you want.
Yeah. Rob Bruno is actually the housing director that went through the program. He went through.
Why do I know that name?
Probably tagged on everything that you looked at on my stuff.
Yeah. Like, why do I know that name?
Yeah. He's
That's
awesome.
your man. Yeah.
Yeah. He went through the program, kept his head down, did what he had to do, and he's grown tremendously since he came through the program. So now he's the housing director, kind of oversees every location.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
And he came through the program?
He came through the program. Yeah.
So you give opportunities?
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
That's dope.
That's the goal, to keep it going and give as many opportunities as possible.
Yeah. Tell me how your family, I mean, you got brothers and sisters? What do they think about you? I'm sure that when you were going in, what do they feel about you, man? I mean, I know your moms just must be proud, and how is that?
Life today is totally different, man. Like I have one younger sister. We had no relationship really when we were growing up, just because 2 different people, right? Like she didn't agree with anything that I did, and I was just, I was sick, and I was just angry at her for feeling that way. So our relationship kind of was divided. My mom, she always, she stuck by me the whole time. Again, like she saw something in myself that I didn't see. So she kept pushing me to, do better. I definitely, I hurt her a lot. So I think that over the years, like that has got better. But now, like my relationship with them is like second to none.
Yeah, it's really close.
It's close now.
And life is good for you, man. I mean,
Yeah,
the peace and all that other stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah, we went through this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you much time as you want. Like I said, first I just want to give a shout out for a Vision for Hope, man, the people that help hold this man down, his team, friends, family, man. I just want to give you guys a shout out. You got a good man here, and just give you a shout out, for all the work that you do in the community. Is there anything that you want to ask or anything you want to say?
No, I think I'm pretty much good.
Yeah. All right, so yeah.
Summed it up with all the questions, man.
Well, yeah, I do. I ask a lot of questions.
No, it's good.
You know what I mean? To try to get out. But what I really want to do is just make sure that people know what you're doing. People know about the Vision for Hope. That can you tell them how they can get in touch and what people you accept there?
Yeah.
Tell them a little bit about that. Let them know so if they need to get in touch with you or whatever.
Absolutely. So A Vision for Hope is strictly all male sober living as of right now. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. My phone number is attached to anything. You Google A Vision for Hope, you're going to get me. So if you're struggling and want to reach out, I'm always here to help.
Got you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he said, look out if you have anybody that needs help, man. That's what we're here for. You can call this brother, man, and like he said, he'll give you help. Appreciate you coming. This was one of my fast ones. You're knocking them out the park, right? Appreciate you coming anytime. Simra, Bruno, I mean, if you feel like anybody that you want to send to, come
his
sit
story's
down and
pretty
talk.
Cool, man.
It is, what I mean. That's why I knew the name, because when you said the name, I'm like, Ron Bruno, that's exactly where it's from. You know what I mean? Doing the research. I appreciate it. Yes, you guys. Let me ask you one before we quit. Let me ask you, this stigma, man. I run into it a lot. It's so real, and it seems like we've addressed it so many times and try to deal with it. Yeah. What's going on with it? What can we do about that, man? If it seems like you said, we educate people, and do they just don't want to believe that people change? Or
Yeah, I think some people are just in a bubble, man. I think that all we can really do is just keep pushing on and showing people that there's hope and that people can change.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I mean, what do you have to do?
Right.
Somebody they know has to die before they really just open up. It doesn't have to be that way. You're listening to people like us that have been there, telling you how it is. And if we're telling you this, I mean, how could you think?
Yeah, not only that, it's like every family has had someone that they know that has been touched by substance abuse.
Yeah, right?
At this point, right.
Doesn't it, man? And that's what I'm saying. I sit back and I'm like, how can we have these barriers, man? And people don't know those stigmas could be barriers to somebody's recovery.
Yeah.
Somebody might not even want. Somebody could be it ain't just people on the street. How about the person in the office, a Fortune 500 company that got a problem and they can't talk about it.
Right. I've seen all walks of life, man. And on top of that, too, like some of the greatest, most honest people I've ever met have been people in recovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know why that stigma still continues. It's not like, I don't know.
Look at what you created. I mean, 5 houses, and you, like you said, from the bottom. Look what you created. That should be like, how did he do that? I mean, there's addicts and people with substance use disorder. Like I always say, some of the smartest, they get clean and you take the drug away from them and they climb. That's what weighs us down. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, some of these guys that come through the program inspire me. I see the stuff that they're going through and I'm like, and my life isn't that bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's because you get comfortable. In long-term recovery, you get comfortable. And I'm like, I see some of these guys and I'm like, wow.
You get complacent. You don't want to get complacent. That's a problem.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So even those guys just coming to the program and doing what they do, man, it helps me out. They hold me accountable.
It must
as well.
be, yeah. Well, you're accountable for their life because now they're under your care, right? You've made I don't know if it's oath, but you made at least oath to yourself that you were going out there to help people. So I mean, of course, that's going to make I mean, I wish you luck, man. Like I said, anytime you want to come back, you can send Rob up here if you can talk to him if he wants to come through.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sit down and it's a Vision for Hope, man. And this is my man Joey Simonelli. When I think about all the stuff that's going on with the disease and with how people approach, how people perceive the disease. It hurts me, man. Because I understand that it really hurts people when there's barriers or just, when I was out there using, I got shunned and I got looked at in one way, and now in here clean, there's still some people looking at me funny or, not believing that, this is a disease and I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take for you or for anyone else to understand that people like us, we have a disease.
Yeah.
People have cancer, right? People have heart failure and all these other different diseases, and this is just like one of them. So if you know anybody that needs help, get in touch with Joey. Again, it's a Vision for Hope. I like to give all those people out there a shout out. I like to give Ryan, Mike, Matt, and Alex a shout out again. And just remember, man, that don't wait till it hits you. You know what I mean? You don't have to. And like always, in closing, I like to say I love you to Taisha, little Darryl, and Zayla. Peace.